This is day 659 of Arukh HaShulchan Yomi. This week's Arukh HaShulchan Yomi is sponsored for his chus, for Banei Chai Muzone, for Yonasan Ezra Ben Chana Feigl. If you'd like to sponsor upcoming shir or more Arukh HaShulchan Yomi, please contact me directly. It'd be greatly appreciated. Hey, we're doing Siman Shin Tzadik Aleph to Shin Tzadik Beis. Shin Tzadik Aleph. Din Bitul Rishus B'Mavi, Din Schiras B'Yer. Allah of Bitul Rishus in a Mavi, and Allah of renting out a city. If yesh bitul rishus b'mavi come b'chatzer, there's a concept bitul rishus in a mavi just like a chatzer. B'chomish b'tei bitul rishus barbas mishin pei b'chatzer, and all the parameters of bitul which are explained by in siman shin pei concerning chatzer. We should shachab lo ir b'chatzer for somebody who didn't forgot, and then make an error in his chatzer. Kamochen eze chatzer sheshachach. So to any yard which forgot, v'lo nishtat in mavi and join together in the mavi. Over shivim mezon nishtat the word deliberately didn't participate. The Vatos Shusa can negate its area, its jurisdiction, l'shar mei hamavi to other people in the mavi. Yichol vata rak rishus shem mavi lo rishus shem b'chatzer. Only bevata its rishus in the mavi, not its rishus in the chatzer. As you assume tata mechatzera lemavoi. So the carriage to from the houses to the chatzer, but not from the chatzer to the mavi. Oh, imotim they want yichol vata gam rishus chatzera. In theory, they could also vata rishus their chatzer. Then it gets carried from the chatzer into the mavi, and for vice versa, from the mavi to the chatzer, ulevatayim, and to their houses. Moshe b'chatzer, just like in the chatzer. Gamavato yochol litaltel. The mavato can also carry because because he's now considered a guest by the other members of the chatzer. So too in a mavi. But the chatzer which negates its rishus can also be litaltel, can also carry. Biur writes, nevertheless, it itself is permitted to take out from its own chatzer to the mavi. Arukh HaShulchan doesn't seem to agree with that. And whereas the batel, also the rishus of the house and the chatzer, seems from the Balatanya that they're also allowed to take to the mavi. But according to the Moshe, whatever this is, it's not true that nevertheless they're a rabbim. Rabbim are not an orchim. Many people cannot be guests. But it always says, well, in this respect, even rabbim, vis-a-vis rabbim are orchim, because they're talking about rabbim who live in a house versus rabbim in a chotzer. They're talking about rabbim who live in a chotzer versus the rabbim in the mavi. And perhaps quantitatively it's different, makes a difference also in the halacha. Okay, back to Arukh HaShulchan. Fabulashim Rabim. So the Arukh HaShulchan addressed now the same question. They're Rabim. The Rabim, we learned that Rabim don't become guests. Again, like similar to what we just said. A Chotzer vis-a-vis the Mavui, and all the members of the Chotzer considered like an individual. When Bayis Gabi Chotzer is like a house relative to the Chotzer. When we know even the two people living in the same house, the same apartment, the same room, they consider like one vis-a-vis bitul rishus. So to the case of the Chotzer vis-a-vis the Mavui. Just like there, everybody in the Chotzer can bitul rishus the other direction. To the not the in other words, he's not bitul rishus to them. They give bitul rishus to him. If there's necessity for this, what's happening? So to all chatzers can levat can negate their rishus. The chatzers due to this chatzer shall start from a mavi which didn't join together with the mavi. And then if if they made an air together with the chatzer, they can carry. Start from Mavi, and then they made it the Chatzer, they can carry from the Chatzer to and from their houses into the Mavui. V'chatzeros asurim, and the chatzeros, other chatzeros are also. The Rab and the Gabi Yochi learn asu orchim. They're not guests, so therefore they can't carry. The person in the vato can carry, but the other people cannot carry. But if you want to vato chotzer, but they didn't make an error, there's no point being a vato. It achieves nothing. Sharei osim zeh they forbid each other to carry. But if they did make a error in the chotzer, then they can be keep losing place here. Sorry. But they made an error in the chotzer, then it's possibly about to them. They didn't take part in the movie. They should consider to be like multiple people were in the shtat. They've aimed about them and now about the two people who didn't participate in the because of Sham. Okay, we don't say this. The chotzer, the gabay mavli, the chotzer relative to the mavli, ki yachid chad nechshav. It's considered like it's a single individual. About the rak reshusam shem mavli. Similarly, the other people can only be vatal to this chotzer, their jurisdiction in the mavli. Oh, even gam chatzer same, or if they want also the chatzeros. The ading mavli b'sham chatzer, and the halach will be similar to what it was back there in the chatzer. Brackets hatas you can have torach al mashkas afal pi sheim rabim. There's difficulty in language. I guess the Shulchan Aruch says even though they're masses, Pirusha Tamur, the Ma'ikamash Lon. The question is what exactly that language is telling us. So he says the Arukh HaShulchan suggests the afapi is relative to the mobi. They should be considered to be masses. Shlo Yervu, they're not making eruv. They have Mishnayim, and then I'm vatal to two people. Shloiru didn't do an eruv. Kamashlan to Kiyachidem, and the Kiddush said no. The chotzer vis-a-vis the mavi is like an individual. It's a chinkus of a rabbi sleep cotton half. Base. V'chol adim sheish b'chotzer makuti she'eno oseh ad shnei bantim yisraelim she'osim zeh zeh. All of the by non-Jew that if there doesn't answer the other, if there's only one Jew, he only doesn't answer the two other Jews he answers. Kamo came a movie said by a movie over here. She made shtei chatzeros shel Yisrael. If there are two chatzeros of Jews, so slim zeh al zeh, which shall beat each other carry. Oh, also, oz then also chatzer shel kuti. The choir of the non-Jew answers. So then it's coming in with Jews. If the scares issues. I mean, even though there are many people in the chotzer, but it's only one chotzer which is Jewish, and also doesn't answer. Even though that chotzer there are many houses, a lot of people living there. But when we should forbid this. Come, nevertheless, as we've said throughout the simon, they're considered as one visit for this purpose. Just like a house visiting the chotzer, so to the chotzer visiting the mavli, and to the city with low plu rabban takrasim. Rabban didn't make a difference in takra. They just upgraded it to the or I don't know if upgraded is the right term. They made its parallel in the mavli, as in the chotzer. When you do schirus from the yard of the kuti of the non-Jew. Nearly dafka. You have to do it all specifically from the person who owns the yard, or from his employee or from his wife, but not from one of the neighbors in the chotzer. Even though in a house, when there are two families or two individuals living in the same house, they're considered to be schiru kilkito, and you can remember down from there. Like what previously, v'klola biyadon, and the general pencil the chotzer gabe mavi kavayis lo gabe chotzer. The chotzer vis-a-vis the mavi is like a house vis-a-vis the chotzer. V'yu b'zeba karchoch. You can't say exactly the same thing. Even though they're all in the same chotzer, but they're not in the same house. Okay, it's true. We wanted to make a pouch in chatzeros and chatzeros vis-a-vis batim and a mavli vis-a-vis the chatzeros, but it's not logical. You can't do one person in the chotzer can't be considered the schir of the entire chotzer. He has nothing to do with the other houses. Okay? Who rocking Baal Chotzer, or Meishta's got to be from the person who owns the Chotzer, if there's such a person, or his wife, or Meishto, or his wife, or Muna Chotzer, somebody's in charge of the Chotzer. The Vadai Dinuk is, I guess, like the caretaker. The Vadai Dinuk is because he certainly has the dinner of Sacher B'Lokit of any member of the Chotzer, of all the members of the Chotzer. And if the Baal Chotzer doesn't live here, and his wife and his children and a member's household are not here, and there's nobody in charge of the Chotzer, then it's going to be called so they have to do a skiris shus from all the other Baal Batim in the Chotzer, and we're talking about even if they, I don't know if this point was stressed enough before, that obviously if the other people own their own houses, so of course there's no such thing as Skir Lakito or one of the houses making the Chashituf being Mavato Rishus on behalf of the others. The other Mavato Rishus. But even if the one person owns the house and the other people all tenants of his, then says Arukh HaShulchan, you have to take the jurisdiction he has from him. If he's not here and there's no Munah Chotzer, then it's going to call Ba'abatim Shebachotzer Shesach Chotzer B'Bailim. Then you have to take you have to do skirus with each one of the tenants who remains, because none of them are superior than any of the other tenants. Gimel Be'ir Shechol Kutim, and see which completely non-Jews went to the top of Chol, carrying the entire city. So you here. If it has a wall around the city, and it's surrounded and closed for purposes of habitation. Means that first they made a city, and then afterwards they put up around it a wall. As opposed to where you first put up a wall and then you settle it. That's how I say because according to the ancients wrote, the Stamayors, was a default assumption that generally we assume that they were made mukaf l'dira in the sense first they built the houses and then afterwards you can put an enclosure around it. The stam fortresses generically. Einom mukaf l'dira. They're not mukaf l'dira. The mitchila makifin harabonim first they build the fortifications and only they make they only afterwards make afterwards build their houses. If the two chatzers of the Yisraelim in any such arrangement, in any configuration, then they have to yisocher rishus from the city, on the city, which is as we shall see. That was their days. Our cities are not surrounded by walls. So all cities, since they don't have walls, not to carry anywhere. Not the city, not in a non-metropolis, and not in a village. Right? They're not carrying any of these places because there's no skiris l'shus. Actually, he says because they don't have walls. Sorry. The only non-Jews yard, mutar l'tal to have to carry because he's okay. Nowadays we make our eruvin by tzuras haPesachs. Including there are many houses and courtyards of non-Jews. They have to do skiris from the city. And that will become clarified in the coming seifim and simanim. You have to do a skiris l'shus from every chatzir of every non-Jew, and it's not good enough to do it from the of the city, the mayor, or whatever the case may be. Hakal Shano. The Vir Rabbeinu Beis Yosef. It says explains this Elishoina. But Medvar Morim, who is this true? Besides Shane about him Shalom. When the official has the house don't belong to him. And he also doesn't have permission to use the house of the city at all, even at a time which is not Shas Shalom. Now, with Shas Shalom, yes, most town of city officials have no right to use your property or your house or whatever the case may be. But it's much more prevalent that at a time of war there is such usage permitted, and therefore he's saying even if they just had reshus at time of war, that would be enough. That would be enough to do schirus reshus from the city. Aval b'makom mishkol tzarich ir ein azim ela pi asar memuna shelo, but in the entire all matters of the city only done by the official or his designees. Just let's say he has departments and heads of department. Certainly renting from him or from his employee is okay. Because he has the authority to place people and the weaponry in the houses of the people living in the city, without their consent, if he needs this. The Bir Halacha says, yeah, there's a caveat here. If you can do it at a time when it's compelling to use the houses, he still can't do that in a place where the law of the land is that he can't do it. In other words, just because the king usurps additional powers doesn't mean those additional powers. So therefore, we go by the laws of the country, not laws of the, I was going to say, as a country, not by what that individual king decides to do on his own, but that individual mayor, that individual governor, who says who's they have the right to do that. Now that according to the decree of the emperor, the czar, yesh b'chol ir v'ir, is in every, it's Kira is used not just for czars, it's used in general for any form of government. Yesh b'chol ir v'ir, they're in each and every city, batei pekudos, official offices, shemanim b'inyanei ir, which look into the matters of the city. B'chol tzorcheh, and all its needs occurring, u'uvrava, whatever that means. They have zoning laws which permit the building of certain houses and yards. They are and they are also the ones who are in charge of the streets and the marketplaces. They can do the from the head of the governing body of the city, or his employee. See, it doesn't need courts nor police action. The Torah, when he's writing the scriptures for each and every house, it's only if you want to take things into and out of the non-Jews' houses. When you carry that you can always take the rental from the official. Who sell asar, because the right of way of the mobli belongs to the official. Because of the Sali called Adar Misham, you can remove all the people who live there. I guess now you can't remove them at will or quarter soldiers at will. So therefore now, in our day and age, Schiras would be based kudas a ear. The No, it's not shaykh zeh. Uh, Much it's not shaykh zeh. I guess not shaykh the rental from each and every individual household of a non-Jew. Yeah. Now we definitely do schidus from the governmental authority. In small towns, there's always somebody in charge from the king. Shelav Yifnu, or from the government. Shelav Yifnu, that person, he's like the country's agent. To him, all the people in the city direct their issues, or all the matters of the city are decided by him. Who most normally Machos, and then he gives these decisions, I guess, to the to the district governor. It was Torah Mayor Mitzchil Kito. Has to do Kito either from the mayor or from the governor. And if there's a Jew who falls the category of the employee, you can do serious just for him. As with the Tal Cholia, they didn't carry the entire city, but also in the courtyards of those who are not Jewish. Because the entire city becomes like 1 yard. Hey, you have Jews living in a specific chutzner. Where everyone in the city is not Jewish. If you have comments around the wall, no matter which permits the entire city, theoretically to carry. Shabbos, and other Jews pass by there. They have Shabbos with Shav and they mention Shabbos there, and these achsenu b'chatzar, and they took up lodging in a different chutzner. They don't forbid the original chutzner to carry. The reach ain't osir. A guest doesn't forbid them from carrying. That's interesting. And also and they're allowed to carry the entire city. How long is a person called a guest? Actually, up to 30 days. Much time is Siman Shin Ayin, as it was previously in Sham. The brackets Smash Kazam, I'm going to Shem Mashal, Berid Lublin. Okay, it's not relevant to us. Shin Sadi base. Half range but Arabin ben Ir Lo Sharabin Lo Shayachin. So there's a question of law whether there's between a city which is owned by the masses or a city which is owned by the individual. Simon says Barish Al Pishitu Chacham Lai B'Chol Ir. Yecham allow you to make an air throughout the entire city. Mikom nevertheless Imye Yesh Arim, the city should is a batim. They have to leave some houses aside. So that they should make it in the Eruv. If you have a Atzmam, they should make it for themselves if they want. Meal you assume nevertheless they can't carry it from their place to the city. So tell them Misham, right? You can't carry from their place to the city, and from the city to their place. But time Mashir, the reason why it's encouraged to leave out some people from the Eruv is Kadeshidu Eruv. So the Eruv who tell him Tiltu. They shouldn't think Shabbos is permitted, which many people kids grow up with nowadays. There's no issue of Tiltu. No, they should know this is Tiltu because they can't carry from their yards into that other area's yards. They should share their Eruv Taltel. For Raya Shabbat Lasu Bechal Eruv also talt. Also, this is a Raya. The Shalidei Eruv who does them a Taltel. It's like the Eruv which gave them mission to carry. The Raya Shabbat Mishon Lasu Bechal Eruv. The proof is that houses should not part of the Eruv. Also, Taltel Sham Minal carry them Mishon Lakan from there to here. In Loyasu Shir, if they don't make a Shir, you should go some area which is outside there, even though it has its own separate area. You should go the Garmish, also Taltel, Loti Shabbos. I had it once so when I was teaching him today, it took most of the class of the Lower East Side for a Shabbaton, and many of them had grown up not having this concept of no Eruv. They automatically carried stuff. So that's the after the Shir. They shouldn't forget the Yisrael all together. So that's Rabin. It's in the city of the masses. Lo b'Yosher but not a city of a specific individual. Commercial as we become clarified. The parish of Rabin, Larifa Rambam, what's considered to be Rabin? According to the Rambam, going to show you, he kinyan Rabin. It belongs to many people. Shana Shach doesn't belong to one person. But this is talking about where the I'm sorry, I wrote this wrong. But Shayachid is Zelk Sha'ir B'nah Yachad Latzmo, the city built it, put together for their own resources. She is Rabim, that then be able to rent out to the masses. But then he sold out to the masses. Both to put apartments in there. And he labels himself Drachim Esatios Suplatios, writes away in various different types. So that is the atmosphere in the city, which is it's on the grid, but it's owned by an individual. I would have never heard such a thing. Okay, base. The Talmud Rabbi. Many people are astounded. Why don't we leave out today any part of the city? Making the cities below Shemshir without leaving anything out. But then they're going to Mishnah Good question, right? So he gets everything. Those answer. We explain the whole like Rashi. And here, which has multitudes, has 600,000. Those who say this some the non-Jewish houses are considered to be enough of a shear of leaving outside the main Eruv. But this seems difficult to say. I don't think there's any beginning to this question. Shir that required a vestige, which doesn't have an Eruv, but it has a separate Eruv. That was in those cities. Some people here. They had walls around the city. The and they only need the Eruv because that's a sheer hecker. And then he needed a sheer, something left over as a hecker because the walls are using are not distinguished as Eruv walls. Bar towns don't have any gate. I don't have any. Don't have any. Okay, don't have any walls. Most of the time, we can't carry in the city. Since we make it enclosed by the Tzuras HaPesachs. When the Pesach gets broken, they announce it and they're not allowed to carry. There's no greater hecker. Everybody sees Tzuras HaPesach here, though, the corners of the city. And the right past Tzuras HaPesach is also to be motiv. There's no greater hecker than the end of the Eruv. He says in brackets, below hekef choma, not surrounded by wall. Anybody's who says kotzair, there's no such thing as what we're talking about, a house at the edge of the city. So in that case, it would leave the house. There are no specific boundaries to the city. And therefore, the city can go on for miles. So it's not an issue because right outside the pyramid, there's an area which doesn't have a Tzuras HaPesach.